I was at the dedication of the Churva many years ago.
Yeah.
You know, the Churva, why is it called the Churva?
Fill and destroyed and fill and destroyed.
Yeah, so it was, okay, you be careful with those. I'm not guaranteeing that those taste good or are good for you, okay? They're actually quite, they're a frankenfood. So I was at, this is one of the most moving, well, I've been to many moving things, thank God, things that bring you to tears. But this was the celebration, the most moving celebration I've ever attended. What was it? The Churva. Oh, you guys go to yeshiva right next door to the Churva. Okay. Do you remember the Churva? But when it was still a Churva? What was it back when I was your age? The Churva was basically that synagogue downstairs in the basement, the Ramban shul. Does Rabbi Nebenzahl still daven there sometimes? Gives a share there?
I've never seen him that.
Okay, so okay, fine. So back in the day when it was easier to hear Rabbi Nebenzahl, for example, I was there in Rosh Hashanah, 5768. You know, he gave the shir between Mincha and Mariv, and it just pulled out a Rambam Mishnah Torah. It was very nice, and that's what he used to do. And upstairs, there was the Churva was basically bombed out room, and it had no ceiling. It had still the archway, and it was something you could. It was a tourist attraction, sort of. They didn't really let people in, and then they started rebuilding it. And I forget when. It was when I was at YTA, in 2010 or 2012, when they rededicated it. And on a whim, one of my students said, "Oh, I'm going there tonight after school to be there," and it was amazing. They had a Achnasa Sefer Torah, and it was a whole thing in the Rova. I thought it was the happiest occasion I've ever seen. Yeah, there was a lot of young men. There was a big dancing and everything. And the music was great. And somehow I ended up on the backside of the Rova. That's of the Churva. That's where they're letting people actually in for the continuation. The thing with Chazanim in the first Mariv inside, and I got pushed indoors. There was a limited crowd. I was actually inside there. I don't know how. So God gave me that good fortune. And I said, this is basically Me'ain, what the dedication of the temple is going to look like. You can imagine how happy this occasion was. Like I said, I've never seen such a big crowd and such a happiness. Soon you're going to have, God willing, the same thing. They're rebuilding the Tiferes Yisrael shul next door, right? How's that coming along? Have you seen inside? Do you know what that looked like before they started building there? Just big empty space next to Yeshivatic Hotel. So God willing, that will be the next big thing. And then they could start building the temple. And we could look forward to that. So I had a taste of what it's like. This is like the opposite of, says we saw in Sefer Nehemiah, Sefer Ezra. What happened? They dedicated the second temple. They began building the second temple. They started the Korbanos again. And they had a big celebration. And it says that the old timers who had survived and remember the first temple, to them it was so sad. And they couldn't know what was louder, the people crying or the people who were celebrating. But now there's no one who remembers the Beis HaMikdash as it was. There's no one alive, at least as far as I know. Maybe, you know. And I don't think it's going to happen. Just like it was just entirely happiness when they rededicated the Churva, so too when they finish the Tiferes Yisrael synagogue, it will be like that. And God willing, also the temple. And we're very close. Rabbi Soloveitchik called, actually, I don't know if he called it this, but he uses a central pasuk for one of his major drushes that became a book. Fate and Destiny, they published it as recently, and they called it fake. The voice of my beloved is knocking. So where's that a reference from? That's from Shir Hashirim. What's going on there? Rabbi Soloveitchik saw that he declared that the founding of the state of Israel was an amazing opportunity, a divine knocking. God is the beloved. He's sort of knocking at the door. I'll tell you something that really happened to me. Sometimes you guys are young. You think you're in love. Okay? You want to find her. In the olden days, our phones didn't have the Koshi, they had text messages. And if whoever you're trying to call didn't answer the phone or didn't answer the text message, you didn't have like GPS on your phone or WhatsApps and all these other things. You could actually share a location. I press a button here. I could see where my children are and they could show me. That's amazing. You couldn't find this. And sometimes you just walk right past each other. You know, it just happened. My wife claims, and it was her idea that we get married. My wife claims that we met many months before we actually, when I do recall actually meeting my wife. Okay, she claims that. I didn't know what she says it right there. You know, and someone even introduced me to her. I didn't know. I don't remember it. So you can imagine that's what's going on. The beloved is knocking. The beloved is, let's say, on the other side of this wall. But because we don't know about it, we're completely unaware about it. And all they have to do is knock the second. Oh my God, they're so close. What's happening now at the temple is many of us think that this is a long ways off. the idea of a temple is, Beis Hamikdash. That's something we read about in storybooks. It's something we read about when we study Tanakh. The Tanakh is a long time ago. Beis Hamikdash is a long time ago. Now there's the Kotel, and Har Bayis is a ruin. No one goes there. It's a long ways off in both in the direction of the past and the direction of the future. Correct? And that's not the way I see it at all. Things have gotten so much better. There's so many people who are ready. There's such a good nucleus of people now who are ready for these things and going there. And there are people actually ready with the technical aspects. Like this week gave a shir. We have the mizbeach. We have the altar ready. We have the lambs. We have the kohanim. You're Kohen. One of you was a Kohen or anything. Whoever it is, we have what is necessary. We can do this. And people don't realize the beloved is now knocking. Just like in Rabbi Soloveitchik's day, he said this in the 1950s. In the 1950s, it was Kol Dodi Dafek settling the land of Israel, the state of Israel. That's an amazing thing. But now we have hit a point where the beloved is knocking again. We haven't realized that. And getting up, what does it say in Shir Shirim? I got up, I was too delayed, and by the time I got up, my beloved had run away. It's like to chase after someone. The love, the Rambam says, Shir Shirim is the mashal for the love. He says, generally they say Shir Shirim is a mashal for what? Am Yisrael's love for Kadosh Baruch Hu, Klal Yisrael. The Rambam has it, no, it's an individual's love for Am Yisrael. The individual must be lovesick for Am Yisrael. And the only way you could describe it is if you've been in love, or you think you've been in love at some point, the way you are always thinking about your beloved, and you just want to find her. I don't know, maybe you guys have found this, maybe you haven't, I don't know. It's a good feeling to feel. If you have heartbreak, though, if you fail at it, it really hurts, too. But the point is, if you understand that feeling, then you could understand what it is like to want to love God and seek out God and really want to bring this about. Are we ready for this? I've met people who really live this love for God. They are so dedicated to this proposition. I'm so proud of them. I wish I was like them. I'm just a tag along, basically. I sit here, I tell you guys, here, let's learn some Bias Mikdash. That will get us ready. We have to want it, and we have to raise the next generation. Do they have this in yeshivas right now? Are they telling people that the Beis Hamikdash is a real thing? It's good that in yeshiva they actually bring guys and they're learning in Eretz Yisrael. That's great. They're sitting there and studying Torah in Eretz Yisrael. That's great. And they're even having yeshivas where there's a good percentage who are sticking around and staying here to settle the land of Israel, right? Usually British guys are in Hakotel, by the way. Since when is it in the right though? But how many guys stick around in Hakotel? Thank God. A good percentage. Thank God. I'm very proud of them. Okay, former students are there, and then they went through. It's great. But how many of them are being dedicated in the yeshivas now? We are looking forward to practically building the Beis Hamikdash, being involved in this. Is that something on the curricula yet? This is something why I lost my place in these yeshivas. I said that we have to make this practical. We have to do this. And there's, I think, like 2 or 3 yeshivas where they actually do it now. It's not the mainstream yet, but is going to become the mainstream. Thank God a lot of the yeshivas now, they bring their students on group trips. How many Hesder yeshivas do that? We've seen them, right?
Yeah. That's right.
Does every single yeshiva is a right to doing it yet?
Technically,
But they're winking and nodding. That's great. And their seminaries doing it. I was the biggest surprise last year. Suddenly I'm going, I told people this is the strangest thing that happened. What was it? We went to some of the seminaries to talk about, Korban Pesach, Haggadah Pesach, which is right behind us here. I'll introduce you to that soon. And Michal, careful that you're not supposed to be playing with that. Give me that, please. Don't touch this, okay? So I'm not supposed to talk to them. Why? Because the most important aspect before you go just visit Har Bayis is going to the mikvah. So I'm not supposed to be talking to young ladies about these things. That's not my prerogative. It's for their parents or the educators are appointed to do that. Then they told me, it's okay. We already know. Many of us have already gone. They're actually, this is part of the curriculum now.
Oh.
And I was surprised. My wife and I were there. It was like, wow. And the next place also, my daughter was there, and she's like, yeah, this is something that they're doing. Thank God, because you shouldn't just teach young people about going to the mikvah before their marriage, whether men or women. It is something, when we have a Beis Hamikdash and we have to eat kodshim, this is something that's practical all the time. If you're a Kohen, it's practical every week. It's practical every day. If you're an ordinary Jew, it's practical whenever you want to give Truma Meiser. It's practical every time you want to go to the Beis Hamikdash. And you have to know these halachas. So thank God they're putting it into practice. They're learning it.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.